Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again on Itamar. It's Friday here, and I want to continue with a lesson today on the beautiful botany, the fauna of the land of Israel. And it's something fascinating. This week's portion is Kitavo. We're talking about when you come to the land and you bring the 7 species of the land, the first fruits, to Jerusalem. And the land has so many other treasures that sometimes they're overshadowed by the 7 species of the land, and everything that grows here is so special and so very unique in the land of Israel. And if you learn the Bible and you study the Bible well, you will see how our prophets use the fauna, the botany that's around them, surrounding them, beautiful vistas of land around them to describe so many things in the prophets. And I'm going to give you an example right now. King Solomon, he brings down in the book of Ecclesiastes, in chapter 7, verse 6, and he says like this, he says, Ki kekol hasirim, the voice of the sirim are a particular kind of thorn bush that grows here in the land, in this area in Itamar and Samaria. And he's describing that the voice of the sirim under the pot is like the voice of the fools. Now what is he talking about? And basically, to understand his words, we have to understand a little bit about this plant. And right behind me, I'm going to show you in a minute in details, of course. We're going to take some nice close-up shots of this סירה קוצנית, what it's called in Hebrew. The word seer is a pot, and it was used. One of the things that this seems like just a thorn bush, just a weeds growing, was used throughout the ages for making fires and to cook things under the pots. And when they're cooking, when this thing is cooking under the pot, they have a certain kind of fruit that makes a pop, pop, pop sound. And this is what Solomon is describing now in the book of Ecclesiastes, saying, you know something, just like this thorn bush wants to be important. He wants to be known just like the regular trees, the big trees that grow, they're so tall and so beautiful and broad. He's a little thorn bush over here, it grows about 40 centimeters. And he wants to also have his voice heard. So it makes pop, 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 to let itself be known, all the noise that like crackles and clicks under the fire. And that's really what King Solomon is saying about the fools. They want to make themselves, we're also wise, talking a lot, letting themselves be heard, let the people know that they're around. And that's called the סירה קוצנית. This is mentioned a few other places in the Bible. I'll give you another example in Isaiah 34:13. Isaiah mentions, Valta amonoteh sirim, he goes, he talks about how the destruction will come on the kingdom of the Edomites, the nations that will come against Israel, and he describes how there will be these just thorns and bushes that will be growing there. And one of them he mentions is the סירה, this particular plant we're going to see in a moment, and he mentions it there in Isaiah 34, verse 13. And another place it's mentioned is Hosea, in chapter 2, verse number 8, and he says, Hineni sachet darkecha basirim. Behold, I'm going to sort of block your way with the thorns. And he gives examples, V'gadalti et gdera, and I will make a fence. Because we're going to see in a moment, Hosea is talking about, of course, we say in Hebrew Hosea, he's talking about preventing Israel from going astray, and they're going to put stumbling blocks in his way so we can't go astray anymore. As God promises to bring us back home, no matter how far we went away from God. And the prophet describes it as using the סירה as making a fence, which is, of course, one of the things that he used for this plant I'm going to show you in a moment. I'd like to mention before we actually see the plant, one more source. If we look in the Talmud, the Talmud is quoting a famous happening in the Bible, which we know when King David was running away from King Saul, he had a couple of opportunities to kill King David, and he didn't. And one when King David was lying down, and we know he took the kad, the jug of water under his head. And the other one was when he actually went to the bathroom, King Saul in the cave, King David ripped his garment. Now, the Bible recollects a story where Avner, we know a terrible story where Avner, who was the general of King Saul, he was taken from a place called Bo HaSira. Bo meaning the pit, Sira meaning the bush we're going to see in a moment. He was taken from there and he was brought, as we all know, to Yoav, who was the general of King David, without King David's knowledge, and there he was killed. And the Talmud explains that the reason he was killed was because he, instead of learning a merit for King David by saying to King Saul, look, he could have killed you, he really wants peace, he had the opportunity, and he ripped your garment, he made up an excuse saying your garment was ripped by the סירה, by this thorn bush called סירה קוצנית. And that was the explanation he gave to King Saul, and King Saul then continued to chase after David, and he eventually, Avner, the general of Saul, was killed. So anyway, those are the a couple examples. There are other examples where this thorn bush is mentioned in our sources, and now I'm going to actually show you and talk to you what it's good for in other ways in modern times as well. So I'm going to actually focus a close-up on the thorn bush, and hopefully we'll continue right now as I focus the camera. I'm going to run over there. I'm focusing right now on a piece of cloth that was ripped inside the thorns. What a perfect example of what happened to, what Avner claimed for King David. Let me focus back on that. There we go. Let's stop here right a moment and let me run over there right now. Let's get over here. Okay. You look over here, look at this. Look at how this is inside, literally. Inside the thorns, and it's ripped. I can get a close-up here to show you. Look at this piece of garment that was ripped, being stuck inside these thorns right over here that we're looking at. Okay. Well, that's one example of how this thorn bush is pretty thorny. Anyway, let's continue with some other things. I want to get a closer shot. And what makes the crackle, if you look closely at this plant, this is in the Rosacea family, and we say in Hebrew, Vradim, and it does flower, but not now. What's very interesting, it's almost like a springy mattress. I'm going to show you that now, how it's like a springy mattress. Take a look over here. This whole area, it springs up and down. Now, in the army, we use the springing mattress by putting down sleeping bags and actually sleeping on these things. And when it rains, the rainwater runs underneath. So it's also used as a mattress. The ancient times, it's brought down in sources that these were used for actually making brooms. You can cut off the thorns and actually make a broom head and sweep your house. It's another good use for it. Okay, I want to continue what we're doing now here as I show you more about the סירה קוצנית. It's also used for remedies. And the remedies here, a couple of remedies are mentioned in the sources. If you take actually the roots of the סירה קוצנית, it could be, if you take about 100 grams of root, put in a liter of water and cook it for about an hour, it can actually be used against, this is proven scientifically, in Hebrew University, they made a study, and it's actually could help someone who has diabetes. It's known to act as an insulin, and it reduces blood sugar. Also, these are a remedy of taking you see I'm holding in my hand, these little berries. This is the fruit of this bush, and these berries can be gathered together. You cook them also in a liter of water, about a handful, and what you can do with it is you use the water itself by just taking some water in your mouth if you have an infection, your gum infection, or a pain in the tooth, and you can actually, we say in Hebrew, goggle, and let the water spit it out, and then it sort of cleanses the mouth. It's like a cleansing, like an antibiotic. Regarding the remedy for diabetes, as I mentioned, there you would drink from the tea you would make out of it. Drink 3 or 4 cups a day after cooking it for an hour, as mentioned before, the root. So it's a known usage for a remedy against diabetes, as we said. The berries using for all kinds of, as an antibiotic, a natural antibiotic. Also, if someone has a cut or something, they can soak some in water and put the area of the body that has an infection. So it's used for these different things. It's a fascinating plant. And again, to this very day, it's very, very common in the land. As I mentioned before, soldiers use it as a mattress, and it's used today. Even there are still some Arab villages that would actually use it for brooms. So again, a little study about the סירה קוצנית here in the land. And I hope you enjoyed that. Have a beautiful Shabbat. And when you come to Israel, you come to visit us here in Itamar. I can show you close up these beautiful plants that grow here. Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom, bye-bye.